Yeah, I've done it. Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. I seek refuge from Satan the rejected in the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. So on today's podcast, what we've got Charlie Lohman and Deana Lohman, husband and wife, from representing Islam Channel USA. So good afternoon, or here in the United Kingdom, it's actually good evening. So what's the time in America at the moment?
It's a little after 1.
Yeah, 1:18.
Wow. And how are things over there? So talk to me about what's happening out there in America in different states, because what we are seeing here is there's a lot of things in the news, a lot of protests, a lot of rioting happening, a lot of unnervy people in the world right now. And obviously the protests from America are coming over into the UK for the right reasons, I think, personally speaking. So what's happening over there? How are you guys doing?
We're doing fine.
Yeah,
good.
We're doing good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
There's tension around, but we're doing fine. Yeah.
Well, we don't live near the city, so it's more happening in the cities, in the bigger cities.
Yeah. You gotta look at the camera.
Oh, okay.
That's not a problem. Hey, I'm a technophobe myself, so it's fine. Absolutely fine. So do you know, obviously you live not in the city, but do you find that people are talking about what's happening in the cities where you're living at the moment?
Well, I'm not a big news person. Charlie can probably answer better. He keeps up with. I had to stop watching the news. It was just too much.
Yeah, because am I right in thinking that the news over there is similar to the news here? The news here tends to be majority negative. Everything which is bad in the world, they've got to report.
Yeah, and it tends to be repetitive, some of the same stuff over and over again, and it is mostly negative, and then that just it becomes old. You don't really know what to believe, and then it just you don't really want. I don't really want to watch it after a while anymore. I like to just keep up with what's happening, but I can't just keep on watching it.
And how about yourself, Charlie? Have you? Because I remember not long ago, was it? I say not long ago. It might have been a year or two ago, where I think was it you who shared something that you showed clippings from news reporters, what they were saying. So, for example, something from Fox News, a presenter was saying was similar to what the CNN news report was saying.
Oh, yeah.
Similar to somebody else was saying. So, obviously, they're trained. To me, it seemed like there was a script that they were following, and they were trying to push that script out to the audience, so to speak. Would you say that would be the correct interpretation of that?
Yeah, in my opinion, that's probably what's happening. They have a general script that they follow, and like the clip, I remember what you're talking about, and they all kind of follow the same basic.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know what that means technically. But yeah, I don't really know. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes with that, but I do know CNN and Fox are different.
Yeah.
And they take what they want from what's happening around the world and piece it to their agenda or whatever they want to push, which is, that's how the new, I mean, that's not new knowledge. Everybody knows that.
Yeah.
There's left-wing news and then there's right-wing news. But in general, with the protests right now, I'm pretty sure everybody's on the same page that it's just injustice, and everyone knows that it exists, and the protests are happening. So it's probably a positive thing. Hopefully something comes from it.
Yeah.
It seems like something is coming from it. So, I'm not sure. So
I guess it's watch this space really, because I think it's waking up people in different parts of the world, isn't it? I mean, only the other day I was speaking to somebody, and I'm quite a heavy Facebook user. I share my political posts, religious posts. I've been doing it for a number of years. I strongly believe in the things. I've got conviction, and I know you guys have. And there was somebody, I don't want to mention any names, who was attacking Islam, and they were saying that Islam promotes racism, which led me to create an article on my website. and to
Yeah.
show now actually Islam doesn't promote racism. It promotes equality, tolerance, and harmony among everybody, because we're all one race, which is a human race at the end of the day. So it happens, and I think a majority of my other friends, especially those who don't experience racism, don't really understand because they haven't been through it. Would that be the correct thing to say? Would you say?
Yeah, I mean, in a sense, I believe that you can still have understanding if
Yeah.
you can have empathy and
Sympathize.
understand how it might feel.
Mm.
For me personally, I've experienced racism. Some would say I haven't because of my skin color, but I've experienced racism, and I've experienced it through the mosque.
Yeah, have you? Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, I mean, just being a white guy and not following suit allowed me to experience a form of racism towards me because I'm a white American guy entering into a religion that is understood by Muslims themselves to be an Arab religion. Not all Muslims, of course, not all Muslims, but the ones that I ran into when I was first getting into Islam. But we both know that's not Quranic.
Yeah,
and I did, and I definitely read your article, and you pointed out a lot of good verses. So that was positive. I mean, Deana can speak about some of the negative experiences I've had.
I can speak about negative experiences just even with my family, and we are Arab. My family's all from Egypt, but me and my siblings were raised in the United States, and we have experienced racism, just from the general public, but also experienced racism from our own people towards us. So we've kind of got it from both ends, which has made it difficult for us because we have felt like we don't fit in on either side. Well, especially for me. I mean, I have even gone into the mosque and not felt accepted by the women there. So that's been difficult for me. My brothers have gone into the mosque and been completely accepted, and that could be a male thing. But for them in the general society, they have suffered a lot of discrimination because they were Arab. And one of my brothers is very dark skinned. The other one is kind of light skinned, but the one that's the darker skinned, he has had a lot of problems with it. And even my older sister, who's, when we came to the United States, we lived in a predominantly white area. So even for her as a kid, it was something new. And so she suffered a lot as a child with that. So I think everybody can say that they've probably some point in their life, no matter what race you come from, has suffered from some sort of racism in one way or another because of something in their life. Now, we might not have all experienced it through our entire lifetime, such as a certain race might have always had that happen to them and fear it on a daily basis, but we have all probably had experienced it in one way or another. It's not as if we've gone through our entire lives and never had one experience of it somewhere. So I feel like everybody should be able to understand that. But it, when you get on social media, it doesn't seem to be that way. So,
I mean, I do totally empathize with what you're saying. Do sympathize with what you're saying, because here it's quite similar. I know of people who've gone through the same or a similar thing to what you've gone through. People close to me have gone through the same. I've gone through aspects of racism throughout my life. But as a couple, how have you overcome the racism? Is it because your faith and your bond together has allowed you to do that? Or have you been extra nice to people to show them actually this is what you stand for and this is what you're about?
Go ahead.
I think it's really been our bond, because I am so Americanized because I was brought up in the United States. And although my parents are from the Middle East, I mean, they've lived in this country for over 40 some years. Growing up, you know, they were sort of grasping on to the culture of the United States. So it wasn't that their culture was being pushed on me all the time. I think because my dad was very secular. My mom was still young and she was trying to learn English. So she was trying to learn the culture. So for me, meeting Charlie and feeling not accepted within my own group of people made me lean towards more of wanting to defend him and having more understanding for him, and actually seeing how he was being treated. It was, to me, it was very blatant, but that can be, you know, my own bias because he's my husband.
Was that from Muslims in the mosque then, the way they would treat Charlie? Yeah.
She sped up a little. She jumped ahead like a whole bunch of years. But in Tallahassee, for example, in Florida, I was trying to fit into. I was trying to fit in with other Muslims. You know, I wanted to be around people that I thought believed like I did, and we talked about that on the last podcast, where I thought it was going to be about God and this and that. And I just wanted to be accepted like most humans do, you know, and I just wasn't. Now, like I said, I could have been accepted if I would have just followed suit and did everything I was told, but I'm also an individual and I didn't want to follow suit, but I recognize that as culture. I'm very well aware that it was culture being pushed on to Islam, and it was a cultural type of understanding of Islam being pushed onto the simple concept of Islam. And I remember trying to just fit in, and Deana, one time she just told me, mind if I tell them? She just told me, they're never going to accept you. And it was harsh. It was harsh words, because I could tell you the full story. I was looking outside, and all the people from the mosque, all the men from the mosque I knew were right in the back area where we lived. And I was thinking, man, I didn't get invited. No, I was thinking that. And I was just looking out the window, and she knew what I was looking at. And she just looked at me and said, they're never going to accept you. And it was a harsh reality, but it was true, and I had to accept it. You know, I was a grown man at the time. I wasn't crying, but it did make me feel like, man, what is up with this? Where do I go as a white American Muslim? And I had nowhere to go. This is why I don't go to the mosque. This is why I don't fit in. And I feel the same, I don't know what the word is, but like, I just feel separated from others, you know? So
he left something important out though. Our neighbors were,
you don't want to say too much though.
No, our neighbors were Muslim and friends of ours. And so, I mean, they lived right next door to us and talked to us all the time, but then they had this gathering and invited everybody and didn't invite him. I mean, it was obvious. It wasn't like it was, oh, we forgot to invite
and I
him.
went to the mosque all the time. I went every Friday. I went to the mosque every time. These people were my friends, or what I thought, but you know, I mean, that's just the way it is. I mean, I accept it. It bothered me. It probably made me understand things differently. But I see a positive in it, because it didn't allow me to get spun into
politics.
Well, not just, you said politics?
Yeah.
Not just the politics, but it allowed me not to get spun into thinking that the religion is politics or culture or society, whatever. It made me focus on God. And I think it was a blessing that turned out to be a good thing, because it allowed me to focus on God. I didn't leave Islam because I already read the Quran prior. So I was like, okay, this is not matching. It's not my problem. Now, I'm not saying I always felt that way. I had to mature into that, you know. I mean, I was bothered, right? And there's other things that happened, many other things, but it's definitely
I think it was a betrayal of friendship, though, too, feeling like somebody's your friend, and now all of a sudden you're not included, not understanding why.
Did you ever get to the bottom? Did you ever ask that person or those people, why aren't I being included in this?
No, it was obvious. It was obvious.
Mm.
I could have done that, but they weren't a friend like that, really. More acquaintance.
Yeah, I tried to befriend the wife because she was trying to learn English, and I was trying to help her too. And she was very kind. She'd make us food and bring us food and things like that. The culture and the language is a huge barrier. I never learned the language. My parents tried, but they were so concerned about us being able to speak English that they just kind of gave up. So we never learned how to speak the language, although they spoke the language all the time, and we did learn to understand a lot of it. That became a huge barrier for me, because people were like, why can't you speak Arabic? You know, they would say something to me and I wouldn't understand. And then they would put my parents down for not teaching us Arabic, which would make me feel put down. So that made me pull away, because the culture thing to me was, I didn't fit into that culture. That wasn't my culture. And I didn't understand why. I mean, even at a young age, I didn't understand why the culture was part of the religion. And then as I got older, I started realizing it shouldn't be part of the religion, but that it was, and that a lot of the problems were coming from that, because it was really discluding a lot of people. And the people that it was bringing to the religion, the ones that were, say, converting to the religion, it's kind of narrow, because they might be attracted to the religion not just because of the religion itself, but because of the cultural aspect of it. Therefore, it's not really them just coming to the religion because of the religion. It's because of other reasons, which really shouldn't be part of it.
I think
so
the male thing.
No, all the cultural aspects of the religion get intertwined, and therefore the myth of what Islam is continues to spread, because even the converts get tied up into the culture and the dress and the language, that it continues to keep on going in the same direction instead of progressing into what it should be.
You know what? You hit the nail on the head when you said that the culture and religion shouldn't mix at all. You should be able to take the Quran, you should be able to practice your religion regardless of where you live and who you are with. Now, this is quite, it's really important, the thing you've mentioned about culture and religion, and because in the UK, there are a lot of Muslim communities, especially the South Asian communities, where they push the culture onto religion, onto the younger generation, the way they dress, the way they wear the hats, the way they keep their beards, you know, and it seems like when I walk through the community, that is an exclusive, you know, for the brown people. It's a religion for the brown people. And if anybody who's not brown wants to join in, I see myself and I observe that actually this person is feeling quite left out. And that's totally, totally wrong in my eyes. It's absolutely wrong. And unfortunately, until Muslims pick up the Quran and read it for themselves and understand it for themselves, coming out of that routine, so to speak, is gonna be hard for them for whatever reason. And you know, it's up to me to teach my kids, you know, this is what Islam's about. It's up to them to choose whether they want to follow it or not. You know, they could totally rebel and say, no, it's not for me or whatever. But at the end of the day, there's no compulsion in religion. At least I can show them, this is this is what we do. This is who God is. This is the Quran. This is what Islam's all about. this is what traditional Muslims do. But also coming back to your point, Charlie, from the previous podcast, maybe that's what their journey is. You know what I mean? With using the Hadith books, using man-made conjecture, you know, and I don't know. I don't know what the right or wrong. I know what the right or wrong answer is, but it's a real shame. The way for me, the way people act still, you know, with this bubble, so to speak, and, you know, brown people are in this bubble from what I see. And if there's anybody who's not part of the same culture, come from the same country, it's going to be hard for them to accept it. And that's totally wrong, because that's not what the Quran teaches us at the end of the day.
No, it doesn't. And I truly believe that all the secondary sources that they do use is what's causing so many people to be judgmental. It's almost giving them this free reign to think it's okay to judge others. And to me, that's just a huge problem. That's a huge problem. It's like, I mean, that should be a big deal to me, I mean, if you were to go and read the Quran, and you would see that over and over again in the Quran, that God is the only judge. God is the only judge. I mean, if you would, at one time I had counted how many times you see that. I don't remember now, but it's, and you know, if you think about it, something's repeated for a reason. Certain things are repeated for a reason throughout something, like we do with our kids. We repeat certain things that we want them to remember that are significant. So to me, that allows them to forget and just gives them permission to judge. And this doesn't bring any kind of peace or any of us bringing us together. It just causes more division. You know, and it doesn't even allow us to sit down and have a conversation like, okay, I'll sit and listen to what you have to say. And I'm very open to sit and listen to what you believe and what you think. But then when it comes to me talking about what I believe, what I think, the conversation ends. Okay, I sit and listen to you, and then the conversation's over. You don't hear what I have to say. Well, that's not a conversation.
No, I totally agree. A couple of my family members are exactly the same, because for a number of years now, since when I was speaking to Charlie the other day on the podcast, when I was 19, I found the Quran, and, you know, I was reading verses for the first time, and that was what opened my eyes. You know, these specific verses about, you know, somebody asking me, what sect are you? And I'm saying, well, my family's Sunni. Well, they're showing me verses saying, actually, why are you dividing yourself into different sects? Then from that, my journey began, so to speak. You know, I found other things, and I went home to the family and I said, look, you know, do you know the thing that we've been doing for years? Well, in the Quran, it says this. And then, you know, they get uptight, they get angry, quite understandably, the older generation, because they've been so used to believing what they've been believing for a number of years. And if somebody's telling them in a certain way that actually you're wrong, then obviously it's going to get their defenses up. And I guess because I was young and brash, as I mentioned to Charlie in the other podcast, maybe my approach was all wrong, but in terms of my own belief, it strengthened my own belief. But I think you're right, Deana, in what you're saying is in terms of strengthening your own belief, that's correct, absolutely right. But when you want to put your side across, people can be very, very dismissive. And whether they want to get their ego across or not, you know, because in the Quran it says, lose your ego, kill your ego. And sometimes their ego's there because they want to show, actually, I'm proud of my religion, I'm proud of my belief. Whatever I say goes at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I'll say this, what I wish would happen, and it can happen because it's happened in Christianity, is that there's not a one size fits all.
Right.
So if people want to have a specific interpretation of Islam, however they want to do it, they should be able to have that. And then the other people should have theirs, and the other people should have theirs. And it should be that way. But I understand the issue with that, because like you mentioned in the Quran, why are you separating yourselves in sects? Mm-hmm. I understand that. That could be an issue there, just in a fundamental way with how Islam should be viewed. But in reality, you have to let people do what they want. Now, I do know it's different from probably for you and probably for Deana, because you guys come from that religion and you want to say, hey, this is the right way, or hey, this is the wrong, or that's the wrong way and this is the right way. I just wish we can just be like, okay, this is who I am. And then we can find like-minded people and then hang out with those people and then create your own mosque and do it. But it's not that way. They just, for some reason, the traditional understanding of Islam has a monopoly on what Islam is.
It has a monopoly because they have intertwined politics into the religion, and the politics and the religion make the laws of the country and dictate. And as long as that continues, it'll continue that way. People are scared.
Yeah, but in the
they
United
think they're
States,
breaking a law.
you can do it. I mean,
right, in the United States, but in other countries, those people don't speak out. Those people don't try to break off. Those people don't try to think for themselves. Even you might find that there's people like that do believe like us, but they will never say it because they live somewhere where they feel threatened. They live somewhere where it's literally against the law to say that out loud, or they would, and so they just stay to themselves, or they don't have the ability, the resources to even, they're cut off from, they're cut off from other people that think the way we do, to even talk to them.
They get persecuted, don't they? I mean, you see it all the time. You get the odd group believing in different sects. For example, in Pakistan, you got the Ahmadiyya sect there, which is a minority group, and they believe in a different messenger. And after Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and they are really getting persecuted because of their belief. And unfortunately, I think you're absolutely right. It's when you come to the Western countries who have got they're more understanding, aren't they, in terms of they want to embrace people, and that's one quality that they've got, as opposed to what the Eastern countries, the Middle Eastern and the South Asian countries have got. I'm not sure what the issue is there, whether it's the egos that play a big role, whether it is politics, whether it is the culture that's taken over the religion itself, whether it's a whole close-knit community they want to make of the same creed or color or whatever. But from what we see, it is wrong. And it's a slow process where it's going to be a slow process. It's not going to be an overnight change. I mean, I'm still afraid to talk out publicly here because I know, and I live in the UK because I know my belief is my views are quite considerably different to X, Y, Z who live next door to me, or and I don't air my views. And now the other day, quite interestingly, I asked one of my close friends, do you want to be a part of my podcast? And he knows I'm a Quran-only Muslim. I focus on the Quran. And he said, actually, I can't be a part of your cause. And this is a Muslim telling me,
that's too bad.
And I'm thinking, but I believe in the Quran, but the Quran alone. And you're telling me you can't be a part of my cause. I don't want anything to do with your cause. He said he loved me dearly. You can't be a part of my cause. And I'm thinking, but you're a Muslim, aren't you supposed to believe in the Quran? And that's all I'm doing at the end of the day. The only difference between me and you is I don't believe in the external or secondary sources, which the other things which you do, which overcomplicate religion. But I didn't say that to him. I just respected his decision and I moved on.
I agree with you, though. I agree with you. That's exactly what it is. It overcomplicates the religion. When it's a simple religion to me. And honestly, I believe every religion that's come even before Islam is been a simple religion that's been complicated by outside sources instead of sticking to their original thing that's been sent to them by God. And I think it's human nature to want to seek out and have an answer to every question you can think of. And if you don't have the exact answer to it, you have to create something. You have to find something that will give you the answer. We as human beings feel like we have to have the answers to everything. We have to have the answers and the support and the proof to everything. And when we don't have that, we will look elsewhere for it. And I think that's the problem. And the reason that I say that. I mean, this is really my opinion and through my experiences of talking to other Muslims, that when I tell them that, you know, I only follow the Quran, and then they say, well, but how do you know how to do this? Well, how do you know this? Well, you don't even know the details of this story. And I say, I don't need to know. I mean, we don't need to know all that. I mean, if I had the answer to every single thing in life, what would be the point of living it? I mean, and then because the thing I'm always told is, and I've heard this all my life, my mom still says it to me to this day, says, well, life is a test. It's a test by God. Okay, well, if it is, then why would he give us all the answers to the test? Why wouldn't we be left to figure things out? I mean, if we're just puppets, then why even just give us all the answers? Just tell us. And so to me, that's why I have a problem with those secondary sources, and they're so conflicting with what is in the Quran. And honestly, I mean, you were so lucky that you were able to figure that out at 19. I was terrified at 19 to have spoken out to just my family of what I felt. I mean, I didn't really know, because I didn't start reading the Quran until my probably like really looking into the Quran until probably my early 30s. That's when I really became enlightened. But I knew at a young age that things didn't seem right. They didn't make sense. In my mind, things just didn't make sense. But I was terrified just to speak up to my family. I mean, which is sad now looking back. So it really did take me a long time. And even now, sometimes when they say things to me, I'm just tired. Like, I just let them say something and I don't even say anything. It just depends on what it is.
Do you have a good relationship with your parents still?
Yeah, my dad actually is very similar to me. So we can talk all day long about religion, which is really great for me.
Don't say too much.
But other than that, that's about as, you know, I just stay away from it.
So it's interesting. It's quite common to, quite similar to my story actually. When I was telling Charlie the other week in the other podcast, that when I went back home to tell my parents, actually, look at this verse, look at this verse, look at this verse. Why do we do something totally different? Right. They had said I had been brainwashed. But I've been brainwashed because I've read the Quran. But that's not what it says. Who wrote this Quran? Have a look at it. Who's wrote it? Who's this? You know, who's authorized this Quran? Then I remember quite vividly, my brother took me to see one of these renowned scholars in where I live. And I just, obviously we opened the book, we had a nice chat to begin with, and it led to an argument where he was arguing, attacking me, and I wasn't backing down, he wasn't backing down, and that's what it was. And he was a renowned scholar, and you know, he didn't have an answer for my question. However, my approach was wrong because I was, you know, somebody could say I was young, naive, had a bit of an ego, thought I was wrong, he was, you know, thought he was wrong, I was right, you know, when they tried to challenge him. But it is what it is. And since then, there's been, whenever religion's been spoken about, you are blessed that still you've got that relationship with your father where you can talk about religion. Whereas with my family, wherever the concept of religion occurs, we know there's going to be an argument somewhere down the line. Only yesterday, my niece was over in the garden again, and she asked me a question. She said, you know, do you know, before you pray, are women allowed to wear nail varnish?
Oh, no.
Yeah. Are they allowed to wear nail varnish and pray? And I'm thinking, right, okay, how do I answer this question without hurting beliefs, or, you know, answer the question logically without hurting somebody's beliefs, what they've been believing? And I asked the question, where did you hear that from? Oh, there are a lot of people who are saying that in the local community, that you can't pray with nail varnish on. Can you believe it? And that's how ridiculous it's got.
It has gotten, you're right, it has gotten very ridiculous. I actually heard that, I don't know, maybe
2 years ago.
God, more than maybe.
Oh,
about,
so you've heard the same thing?
Yeah.
Gosh, maybe about 8 years ago. Wow. And I was about to pray with my family because I do accept accept and respect their belief.
Yeah.
I don't try to change their belief. They just don't necessarily accept me. But when they told me that, I said, I'm done. I can't do this. I couldn't pray with them. I couldn't do it. I'm like, it's too much for me. Like I've done everything else. I will stand behind you. I will wear the scarf. I will do this. And then it came down to that. I'm like, it's too much. I can't do it. It's too silly. But see, what happens is when you will give in to this one thing and to this next thing and to this next thing, it becomes their expectation that you do really believe that. You just are being stubborn. And so I finally just had to put my foot down and just not pray with them at all. I just completely just stopped, because unless they were willing to let me stand in the room with them and the way I wanted to, which they will not, I just don't pray with them when I go back home. I let them do their thing and I just leave the room and go and do whatever I go do. So the nail polish, that's my thing, is that the religion has become, the strangest things. It's become a discussion about the most silly things, and nobody talks about God. Nobody talks about morality. Nobody talks about family, the important things in life that we need help with. And that's what we don't want our kids to grow up thinking about these silly things, because you can almost get depressed.
Well, we kind of talked about that before, me and blah, blah.
Our host.
Yeah, our host. But so this is where me and Deana differ a little bit, because on this thing, because
believe it or not, we don't differ on very much. He makes me think we do, because he likes to take the opposite side on me.
Yeah,
do you like playing devil's advocate, Charlie?
He does
I
that.
do that all the time. He knows that. Yeah. But the thing is, she made me think of something when she said, when you give in a little bit, then they think you're just being stubborn. But it made me think about, and I'll just say the word because I think we're avoiding the word, but the Hadith.
No, I'm not avoiding it. I said secondary sources.
She said secondary sources.
You mentioned it earlier, so I thought we already established that.
But for the viewers, right?
Yeah.
Well, secondary sources to me are the Hadith, the scholars.
But this is the point I'm going with. I'm here for more support.
Anything outside the Quran.
She didn't want to come on the podcast unless I was here. That's why I'm here. But anyways,
no,
other than that,
I was just nervous.
But she made me think about how we see the Hadith differently, in the sense where I'm almost to the point where if somebody wants to accept the Hadith, let them. I don't care. I like to hang out with that person. I can hang out with that person. They can do that. We don't get in a fight. I'm not going to get an argument. You can too, in a way, until they start bringing it up. But just hear me out. She makes a good point when she talks about the Hadith, because she mentions that if you accept one, you have to disregard all of them.
Let me explain.
Okay, she can explain it. Now, I'm not saying I agree with her. I'm not saying I don't agree with her.
You don't have to agree with
me. And she's also my wife, so I have to agree with her.
You have to agree with her.
No, I've learned that nobody has to agree with me, but I have to make my own stance known of what I believe for myself and to other people, so it's not questioned as to what I believe, so that I don't get sucked into something I don't want to do, as in the prayer thing. So
talk about the Hadith, though, about
right. So for instance, in a conversation I've had with my dad, his thinking is, and my dad now, he's grown up with all this, and so for him to be able to agree with me is really a huge step, I think. He's in his 80s now, so it's amazing. But
that's blessing. That is.
I think so.
Yeah.
He's a very rational and logical man. He also has gone back and he hasn't read the Quran in a long time. And I think going back and reading it now again for himself, he's seeing a lot of the things we saw and is enlightening him at this age, even though he thought he knew, So anyways, when him and I speak about the Hadith, he knows I told him 100% I don't accept any of them, and his you know, we can talk about it without getting mad. And he says, well, you know, if it's a good hadith and you can take it back to the Quran and it's not in contradiction to the Quran, then why can't it be okay? Well, it can't be okay because people can't do that. Mm-hmm. Nobody can do that. Somebody has an agenda. We're human beings. There's not going to be any agreement on that. And to me, they're so inferior to what's in the Quran that just leave them all. You can't take things that have been made by man and compare them to something that's come from God. So to me, if we just left them all out, good or bad, we would have so much less confusion. But the ones that do, like my brother, I have a brother that is, you know, he is a wonderful person. He is not arrogant. He is not pushy. Him and I don't even discuss religion. He is a very kind, you know, he's my youngest brother. He's very kind. And we don't have any issues. We don't have any problems. We did in the past, but that's because, you know, we were both trying to find our own way. And I think the struggle, like you said, you were very brazen with your family. I think you had to be like that. Mm. You have to go through certain phases of that to get to where you can just be calm and then accept. But that's a part of your journey of finding yourself and what you believe and becoming your own person. So,
no,
I just feel like it's too much confusion. I feel like it's where a lot of the problems lie is coming from those hadiths and people feeling like they have to rely on scholars to be able to understand the Quran. And to me, it just makes everything very confusing. And I don't think we need all that.
Yeah, I think she's mentioned this to me before, that when you accept the good hadiths and you can compare them to the Quran, one that's not comparable to the Quran could sneak in there. That's what she's trying to say. Like it's like a slippery slope, correct? Well, which in general, in her understanding, you shouldn't accept them anyways, because the Quran is the only source, right, for you.
There's plenty of verses. Sorry to cut you off.
No, that's fine. Yeah,
there's plenty of verses in the Quran that says the Quran is the best hadith and it should be the only thing to follow. Well, I really resonate with what you're saying though, because they say, oh, you leave the bad hadith and you take on board the good hadith. Those are hadith which agree with the Quran. That's been said here in the Pakistani community all the time. Now, my response to that is, if a hadith agrees with the Quran, just go with the Quran. Why do you have to go with the hadith anyway? Because it's all in the Quran anyway. So, and obviously they fail to see the verses which in the Quran which say follow the Quran alone and don't, you know, it has explanations for everything. It's fully detailed, perfect. It's a clear book, Alif Lam Ra, you know, and it's clear signs that it's come from God. But I think there's so, you know, they've been brought up and trained to believe in these secondary sources, how to sit down, drinking, kneeling down, you know, going out their house with the right foot first, or coming into the house with the right foot first, sitting down, but not slouching, but sitting up straight, not, you know, sleeping on the sides, not sleeping on the back, but, you know, and if they yawn, the donkey's gonna urinate in their ear, or the Satan's going to urinate in the ear. You know, I know you're laughing because you've heard that one as well, haven't you? You know, it's just absolutely ridiculous, some of the things they come out with. So
it's too much. I mean, I wouldn't even be able to leave the house every day. I would just have to stay home and not talk to anybody and not do anything.
I mean, I'm not disrespecting anybody, but from a logical point of view, from a Quranic point of view, the Quran's very, and I see your point as well, Charlie, and what you're saying. Just let them be. They're doing what they're doing, as long as, but that's fine and everything. They're peaceful, loving human beings. They're human. They're the same race as what we are. They're on a different journey, and that's totally understandable. But when they push their beliefs onto you, thinking their belief is the only right way and you're wrong, that's when it becomes an issue. And that's where I understand what you know, you're saying, in terms of, if you feel like you have to go to the mosque to pray, if you start doing one thing, you'll feel like you have to do a second thing, a third thing. then you probably end up giving up or giving into them.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that a right estimation? Is that the correct estimation I've got?
I think so. But and it's not that I don't accept. I mean, I truly accept everybody's beliefs, no matter what religion they are. My thing is just, I want to be accepted as well. And I don't want people to impose their beliefs onto me or to tell me that I'm wrong. I mean, in the end, nobody knows who's right, honestly. Does anybody really know? We don't really know. My issue with the Hadith and the scholars and any other secondary resources being intertwined with the religion is that it's become the main dictation of everything in the religion, which is what is causing the division in our religion and is causing all the stereotype of why there's so much hatred and discrimination against our religion, and is not bringing us together as a group. It's not showing our religion to have the traits that are described in the Quran. So you tell somebody, well, it's a peaceful religion, we're not judgmental, and they're looking at us like we're crazy. Like, that's not what I see on TV. Why are all your people going and doing this and blowing this up? And, I mean, that's hard to explain to somebody that doesn't know anything about Islam, has never opened the Quran and looked at it. They look at you like, you're lying, you're making this up. So my problem is that we need leaders and scholars to promote the proper way of the religion that brings us all together, not creates what has happened now, and to look at it now and for them to not see that it's creating a very negative thing.
You think so you're saying the secondary sources have created what the news is showing on TV? I mean, of course the news is showing that on TV because that's what they do, that's how they make money, but outside of that, I know you blame Muslims themselves for misrepresenting the religion, right?
Right. Whereas
are you blaming secondary sources for that?
Yeah. I'm blaming the scholars and the leaders of who people who are Muslim trust and put their faith in to believe what they're saying, that has caused all these problems. And it's further dividing everybody in our religion. It's causing a lot of hatred in our religion against each other. Is causing fighting within, not just outside now, not just a defense of our religion to everybody else, but inside of our own religion, as we're not accepted by other Muslims that know us or that would know us and ask us. They would say, well, you're not Muslim, you don't do this, you don't do this, you don't do this. I don't see that as being a positive or way for the future of our religion. Now, it could change, and it will be a long time. It's not going to happen overnight, but I really believe that, I mean, if you think about it and you think about the history, before the Prophet died, peace be upon him, there wasn't these problems. It started after he died. The division started, the sects began to be created. They started to go against each other and everything. Then they started, however many hundreds of years after, collecting hadiths, wanting to imitate the Prophet, do everything as the Prophet. And now it's how many hundreds of years later, they're still doing that. So it doesn't make sense.
No, I agree with what you're saying. And the reason I agree is I've seen it here when it was only the other week where I was having a discussion with somebody. Again, not going to mention any names, but I'm saying, have you read the Quran? And they get all jittery when you mention, like, they're not qualified to. Is that what you see? Is that what you experience? They don't feel that they're qualified enough. I'm not qualified enough to answer that question. I need somebody qualified to answer that question. So what I'm going to do is ask my mullah, ask my scholar, ask my imam the answer to your question. But they fail to read the Quran. The Quran's kept on the top of their cupboard in a cloth, which is never opened. But they they get really jittery when you ask them, have you read the Quran? I mean, for them, reading the Quran is reading the Quran in Arabic, but it's a race how many times you can finish the Quran in the month of Ramadan, or how many times you can read the Quran in Arabic, a language you don't understand. The more
Right.
they read the Quran, the quicker they read the Quran, they think the more blessings they're going to get without
Right.
even understanding the Quran. But that's what I've experienced, is they feel like they're not qualified enough to answer your questions, because I've asked, have you read the Quran? Have you read this verse in the Quran? This is what it says. Well, I don't know. That's opinions at the end of the day. Well, it's not opinions. It's black and white. It's written in the Quran. That can't be opinion. I mean, you can maybe question the interpretation, but if there's lots of translations, if you go back to the Arabic grammar, look at the lexicons, look at the root words, look at the context, I'm sure you'll be able to find out what's right, what's wrong, what's true, what's fiction at the end of the day. Have you experienced any of that?
Yeah. What's interesting is you and Deana experienced that. And of course, I've experienced that with Muslims themselves, but I've experienced that with non-Muslims, getting in a discussion about what the religion of Islam is. And I'm like, no, it's not that.
Mm.
And they're not even Muslim. Like, Islam is one of the religions where you can be an expert in it and not be Muslim.
Mm.
So I was having this discussion with somebody or someone, and they said that, well, this specific person, scholar, is one who speaks for Sunniism, basically. And I'm like, that's not how it works. I mean, even in Sunniism is split up. Not everybody agrees.
Mm.
But anyways, long story short, the person said, well, this is your scholar. And I was like, first, I don't follow scholars. Second, you can read the Quran yourself and see that the person is wrong. I don't care who he is. I don't care how educated he is. I'm not even educated. I can't say the word educated. How educated this scholar is. He is not saying what the Quran is saying. And this person was saying, well, it's your scholar. Well, it doesn't matter. Well, one, it's not my scholar. But two, you can read the Quran yourself and see that this guy is not correct. Yeah. And so it even happens, I think it must be humankind. Because this person's not even a Muslim and doesn't think he can read the Quran and see that this guy is totally wrong, misrepresenting the religion. And but you guys see it more along the lines how Muslims are doing it. And I see that too, of course, but I just think me and Deana have a different road that we're following. How I felt in Christianity, we talked about this before, is how when it's you feel like you need to defend, like when I was a Christian and last few years leaving the religion of Christianity, I was trying to find the right Christianity. And I was always arguing with other Christians and, in a kind way. It's just the type of argument I like to have usually. They don't always end kindly, but trying to find that right Christianity when it's your religion. And I think I still have that feeling that Islam is not totally my religion, or at least what you guys are talking about. I'm like, why don't you just leave it? But it made me think when you guys were talking is that I think it's because you still feel like this, you still have this desire to find the correct religion that's called Islam, right? I mean, because you grew up in it. Since I'm an outsider, and I'm still claim to be an outsider because I understand the politics, I understand the scholars and all that stuff, but me and Deana get into this discussion. I'm like, just let them have it. What does it matter? But to her, it matters. She wants to claim that word Islam, right? You want to claim that word.
No, I just want to say I'm Muslim.
Oh, that's what it was. She wants to say she's Muslim. And I'm like, well, maybe it's time to just let them have that word, Muslim or Muslim, and just let them have that word and just follow God. But she wants to claim that word. And I don't know why. I want to say I'm Muslim. I mean, I say I'm Muslim, of course, and I have a lot of non-Muslim friends that say, well, you're not really Muslim. And I'm like, what is that even supposed to mean? And I know what it means. They have a misunderstanding of what Islam is. So I don't fit the image that they think a Muslim should be. And I don't blame that on media. I don't blame that on CNN. I don't blame that on Fox News. I don't blame that on any media. I blame that on Muslims, or at least people who call themselves Muslims. I blame that on them. I blame, like Deana, the same thing. I blame the educated Muslims who are giving Islam, I was going to say a negative word there, but I don't know what word I'm looking for, but they're giving it what it's not. And so when I say, yeah, I'm Muslim, you're not really Muslim. And they think I'm supposed to be doing something that is not Islamic. But back to Deana's point, that we've had this discussion before, is that she still wants to hold on to that word Muslim. She wants to claim and keep that word and be able to say, I'm Muslim, and people know what she means by the word. But that word has been, the meaning's gone, I think, right? I mean, sadly to say, I'm not saying you can't bring it back, but when you say the word Muslim, people think of a certain, what it means. And you can try to erase that, but it almost,
it's not about trying to erase. It's a long battle of
to keep a word.
It's a long battle of a change we're trying to make in the religion that's going to take a long time to progress. And for me, it's every person that I meet, that I talk to, that I tell that I'm a Muslim, and that talks to me and asks me questions and can meet somebody like me, is a positive thing. And meaning, like, non-Muslims that meet me and talk to me, it gives them a different image. And to me, that's a positive thing. So maybe that's part of the reason why I try to hold on to it. I feel like that's my part in trying to go against the negative stereotype.
Yeah, and that's it for me as well, because in the Quran, for me, the way I read it is, that's the name given to us believers, is Muslims in the Quran. And if we are saying we're Muslims to another Muslim who happens to be a traditional Muslim, they'll think, hang on a second, he's calling himself a Muslim, however he's not doing this, he's not doing that, he's not doing that. And you might find that one or two people who might become intrigued with my belief and ask me a question, think, hang on a second, how do you do salat? How do you do wuzu? What's your views on halal meat? How do you do the shahada? And, you know, that initial negative might turn into a positive, because they might find themselves reading the Quran, and even reading the Quran more than I am at the moment. Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, when you bring it back to what the Quran says, and that's what I totally get it. I understand it. I guess it just becomes a little disheartening that the word has
lost its meaning,
lost its true meaning. And it's almost like, okay, how about we just give it up? And I understand what you were saying and Deana's saying. I think Deana is more like, and she said that to me before, is that it's a slow process. If people connect the word to who she is, then over time, more people like her, and then that word will change. The meaning of the word will change. It's just, it's tricky, I think. It's just tricky. But when you bring it back to what the Quran says, I can understand that and respect that.
Also, sorry to interject, if a non-Muslim is interested in reading the Quran, or they get to know me as a person, and I say to them, actually, I'm a Muslim, and they have seen all this negative press in the media about Muslims and what they're doing, in quotations, in the world, and they understand I'm all about peace, love, being kind, because it's what the Quran teaches, then they will hopefully have a different viewpoint of what it means to be a Muslim. rather than me coming up with a brand new word like maybe a Quranist or Quran alone Muslim or something else. I don't want to associate myself with a different name, because the Quran to me has called me a Muslim, and that's in the true essence, with my understanding, with my viewpoints, based solely on what the Quran's saying. That to me is what a Muslim is all about. Unfortunately, I think your points are absolutely bang on in what you say. Unfortunately, these external sources, the scholars, these secondary sources, which have intertwined themselves into religion now, which has just overcomplicated the whole thing. And you're right in what you say, that the meaning of the word has been lost over the years, over the centuries of, since the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him's death.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, if we were to start calling ourselves something else, and we would just be creating another sect, and that's not what we should be doing. I
mean,
I'm not saying call yourself something else, but I understand what you guys are saying. Totally get it. I mean, I do. Like I explained last time about that time I had during Ramadan. Yeah. And I was sticking to the rules of Ramadan, and I lost God. And for me, I can also lose God by focusing on a word.
Yeah.
I totally respect your position, and I get it. And it's probably Quranic. It is Quranic. But I also understand that personally I can get lost trying to hold on to a word so much that it almost becomes shirk for me. But I
understand. Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, so I was agreeing with you. I totally understand what you're saying.
Oh, and what I was going to mention is that in reality, when Deana is kind to somebody, she's kind to everybody, and they know she's Muslim. And I'm just giving you a reality, not that you don't know this reality. That person is not thinking, oh, that's what a Muslim really is. They're thinking, oh, she's not really Muslim. Like my experience. So I've had people tell me, well, you're not really Muslim because you don't do X, Y, and Z. So they're not recognizing, oh, this is the real type of Muslim. They just think she's not really Muslim. That's my experience.
They do initially, and I've had people wait years after knowing me to start asking me questions, and then they start asking me questions about the religion. So they might initially believe that. I mean, they wait years to start asking me something. They've known me for years, so it still gives you an opportunity. I mean, even if it's one person's mind that you change, even one person, it's one person is a big deal.
Look at you guys at the end of the day. Prime examples, weren't you? You were in the group, you were finding your journey, I guess. And we met, didn't we? And we helped each other through the journey that we're going through now, I guess. And we're proud to call ourselves Muslims. And I totally understand that you can get lost. I think I shared the story with you, didn't I? In our last podcast, saying I was so engrossed with the Quran, with my website, with everything, that I forgot that I was I needed to devote myself to God. For whatever reason, things happened. I refocused my belief again into God. And here we are today talking about what we're talking. But it's interesting because only yesterday my sister-in-law was here. And I've known she's been my sister-in-law for the last, I would say, a good 17, 18 years, 20 years, let's say. Yeah. And yesterday was the first time we spoke openly about the Quran. And at the end of the discussion, she agreed with me. And I felt happiness, and it was a blessing. Okay, it's taken this long, 20 years. But at the end of the day, that's all right with me, because You know, I've not forced it upon anybody, because I'm like you. At the end of the day, if they want to believe what they believe, that's fine with me. If they ask me about what I believe, I will certainly give my opinion, my view. I'll always give the Quran as evidence, but I won't expect them to push their beliefs on me, because that's where I will say, hang on a second, you're not the only faith around here. You're not the only type of Muslim. And that's my worry, because I don't want my kids to grow up thinking, actually, this type of Muslim is a correct type of Muslim, or this type of Muslim is the wrong type of Muslim. There are different types of Muslims at the end of the day, and we all got our different journeys. We're on our different stages of that journey to reach the goal, isn't it, which is God at the end of the day.
Right. It's our own personal relationship with God. You know, it's really, that's what it comes down to. And we just have to accept each other, you know, because these differences are going to remain. I mean, they're not going to be gone completely. And if at least that could happen, if at least differences could be accepted, that there's going to be differences and it's okay, that would be a huge accomplishment, I think.
Yeah.
But I totally get it. I totally get it. People can be lost in their sect. They can be lost in the word. They can be lost in the word Muslim. They can be lost in the Quran itself. You know, trying to find words or meanings for words or interpretations for words. And, you know, there's also those people who twist the tongues or they twist the word to suit the meanings as well, don't they?
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's a long journey, isn't it? I mean, it's not a race at the end of the day.
No.
Who knows? I could be wrong. I could be 100% wrong. We could be sat here today having this podcast and we could all be wrong, you know. But it's
interesting. You could change too. Like, that's why for me, I always think I'm wrong.
Yeah.
But I think I'm wrong because I've been wrong in the past. So that doesn't, and I thought I was right. Therefore, I think I'm so right now that I could be wrong too, just like I used to think that I was right. And then now I look back and like, you know what, I was wrong. But technically, I was never wrong because it's a journey.
It's a journey, yeah.
And that's why I pulled back a little bit. And I wasn't always this way, from not accepting traditional Islam to the extent of saying they are wrong, because I believe they've helped my journey. Like, almost if traditional Islam didn't exist, a lot of things wouldn't be here. Maybe a mosque wouldn't be here, Muslims wouldn't be here. I mean, it's a firmness that might have been necessary in order to allow us to piggyback off of what they did. For example, traditional Muslims, well, I don't know if you guys would agree, but traditional Muslims probably allowed the stability for the Quran to even be put together and allowed to exist this whole time.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense. So
no, it does.
I don't want to totally
it makes total sense.
them. I think they have allowed us to piggyback off of what they had, because I don't think I would have even became a Muslim myself if it wasn't for the mosque that I went to. Even though I had negative experience, the mosque would not even existed, most likely, right? I mean, it's all a weird, entangled journey where I want to accept what I don't believe. Even in Christianity, I'm a Muslim today because I'm not a Christian. I'm not sure that makes sense. You have to define yourself against who you are not. And the Quran does that for the verse that we pray sometimes. He's not three or whatever, like, you know, in chapter 6, 116 or 112 or something.
Yeah.
Anyways, the Muslims define themselves based on who they are not. So they say in the Quran, I forgot what chapter it is, but we prayed a few weeks ago in the beginning of Ramadan. Your favorite verse?
Yeah, that God is just one.
God is just one. He's not three or whatever. You know what verse I'm talking about?
It's a short verse. A lot of people they recite after the Al-Fatiha and the prayer.
Yeah.
But anyways, my point is this:
I
Right.
don't know what the verse is. I can't
as an
remember.
ex-Christian, if that's a word, ex-Christian,
Former Christian.
I totally that verse totally hits me like, whoa, that's anti-Christian. Like it's really talking about the Trinity and saying don't believe in the Trinity. And then I say Muslims are defining themselves against what they are not. They are Muslim because they don't believe as a Christian.
Surah 3, verse 18, I think.
Verse 18. Okay.
Yeah,
and then my point is that you define who you like. You almost need that Christian belief in order to know that who you are. I'm not sure if that makes sense.
It makes total sense. So for me, it would be knowing about the Sunni faith, because remember back in the day, I did what my parents did, and I still thought I was right back then. You know, as a Sunni, somebody who didn't read the Quran, just followed my family blindly, follow what the Imam said blindly. I still thought I was 100% right. You know, so it was moving away from that, and I'm thinking it's similar to you here when you moved away from Christianity. So moving away from that, thinking that's wrong, focusing on what I do now. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like I need the base of Christianity to know who I am today, which is not a Christian. Like I need to know that I believe in one God, the one God concept, and not the Trinity. And I need the Trinity in order to know that I don't believe in it.
No.
I mean.
So we need each other. We need even the people that we don't agree with.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, believe it or not, I mean, as much as I was convinced that what my family and a lot of traditional Muslims follow was, in my mind, was wrong. You know, I was saying wrong at the time. I still gave it a chance, meaning I would even pray about it. Like, God, this is the right thing? If this is what I'm supposed to be doing, like if I'm totally wrong, if I'm supposed to be wearing the hijab, if I'm supposed to be dressing like this, if I'm supposed to be doing this then please make it known to me somehow that I'm wrong and this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I prayed about it. I prayed about the Hadith. I prayed about lots of things because I wanted to give it a chance. Because that's how much I wasn't willing to say I was right and you're wrong. And even at this point right now, I don't think I'm right, but I also don't think I'm wrong, if that makes any sense. But all the signs I was getting from my praying about all those things was I tried to wear the hijab. I actually wore it for months. But everything that all the signs I was getting in return to these things I was praying about were against these things. And the answer was coming back, no, you're not supposed to.
Tell about the one prayer about the hijab, and then you looked in the Hadith, and then you saw.
No, that was about the Hadith. I gave it one. I had come to the point where
This is, I think, the final.
I had gotten to the point where I finally was like, okay, one last ditch effort. I need to know one way or the other about the Hadith. And somebody had given Charlie, a friend of ours had given Charlie like 3 volumes of Hadiths. And so I had never even opened them or tried to look at them, because when I did, they didn't make any sense. I was like, what is this?
Overcomplicated.
So I said, one last time, I said, God, please just give me a sign. If this is what I'm supposed to be following, give me a sign. I just let the book open, and it landed on a Hadith that talked about them stoning a woman to death that was pregnant, that had gotten pregnant, and I guess she wasn't.
They had to wait until
she wasn't. I think she wasn't married, and they went to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, to ask him his advice of what to do about her, and he said, "You let her." He said something about let her pregnancy finish and let her have the baby, and then they were going to stone her to death.
Oh my God.
And I thought, okay, I shut the thing. I said, that's it. There's my answer. I mean, first of all, we know stoning is not even in the Quran.
Exactly.
And then come to find out, I found out the stoning was something that was prior to Islam. It came from Judaism. It didn't come from from Islam. And I thought, well, why would the prophet be following that? And honestly, I couldn't see, it didn't make any sense to me, but that was like my final thing. Like, that's the thing you want me to see to give me a sign to whether or not I'm supposed to follow this. This is not, and that was it for me. I never questioned it again. That was my answer, that this is not it.
Wow.
That was it. I was done. I never looked at it again. I never questioned it again. I prayed about it so much. And that was my last ditch effort my family thinks I didn't give it a chance. I gave it a chance over and over and over again, multiple times. It wasn't just a one-time thing. This went on for months and months and months. I even did it with my brother. I sat down with him. I said, okay, you have me. Okay. What do you want to tell me? What do you want to talk to me about? And I let him talk to me. And then I let him explain. It was about, I know, silly. It was about the job. It comes always back to something silly. Well, I gave him a chance to explain to me why we were supposed to wear it, what the scholars said about it. And I let him talk. And then when he was done, I said, I'm sorry, I'm not convinced. And then he just laughed, like he was like, okay, that's all right. And I was just, especially when he told me they didn't agree with each other. Different scholars didn't even agree with each other. I was like, oh my gosh, like,
how do you know it's authentic? Yeah.
This is my answer. This is all this confusion is not giving me any answers. Obviously this can't be the right thing for me. I'm not getting anything from this. So that was at the point I finally just said, all right, this is it for me. I'm just going to leave this. I'm getting nothing out of it. So I don't sit here and say that I'm right and they're wrong. I don't know if I'm right. I just know that way is not right for me.
And I think that's what you need to do, isn't it? You need to do something which you feel right in your heart of hearts. If you feel that you're doing something, or you're practicing something, or you're doing something physically which doesn't feel right to you, for whatever reason, God will give you a sign to say, hang on, this is right and this is wrong. And over the years for me, and we were talking about family, is those are the people, the hardest people to get through to, in my own personal view. The people closest to you are the hardest people to get through to, in terms of trying to explain what my belief is. In terms of my mum and dad, my mum still to this day thinks that I'm going to come back, and do the same as what they're doing. She always says the odd snide comment over the phone, you're going to go to the mosque, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, your kids are getting older. And that sort of thing, where I'm thinking, okay, I'm a father, I've got 2 young kids. What am I going to do with them? How am I going to teach them religion when I'm on a different path in my journey? My wife's on a different path in her journey, and my kids are really young. How are we going to introduce Islam to them? I have taken them to the mosque. They have experienced prayer, which I think is important for them, just to get a feel for, but I'm not going to force it upon them. I'm going to tell them as long as they are good people when they grow up, as long as they're kind, that's the main thing for me. As long as they believe in something, whatever journey they need to go on, they need to experience that journey, because I think at the end of the day, they will become stronger as a person. With adversity, I think if you don't have adversity, you can't build that character which you possess at the end of the day. Does that make any sense?
It does. I mean, that's what helps you find answers to things. And it's just like you saying that. I mean, if, our parents just gave us one way, but we're going to be able to give it. They could never explain to me any other thing but just their way. So I just went with that, just like you did with your family. Well, Charlie and I can give and have given our kids, because they've listened to many conversations we've had of everything. So now they get everything. They don't just get half the story or a quarter of the story. They get everything. They hear our side plus the other side, and they get to hear all of it so that they can decide. They're not just getting only half the story, where we just got half the story. We just got only what our parents believed, what our our families believed and what we just went along with because we didn't know any better and we didn't know where to look to find anything different. So I think that's a blessing for them.
Oh,
you know?
it is a blessing for them to have.
The more information they have, the better they can understand.
Yeah, like with we have 4 daughters, and it's interesting is that the way they're being raised, they don't have that type of hang up like Deana might have with her family or traditionalism in general. I don't know, they just have a more open mind and more that could be just the younger generation too. They're just more accepting. They know different people. The internet has made them understand different just different ways of life for people. That plays a big part of it. But they're just more open-minded. And I speak for myself too, as when I was growing up as a Christian. I mean, it was very closed-minded. This is the only way, especially in Christianity. It was the only way, the type of Christianity I grew up in. And I didn't even understand. I didn't know any other religion. So that's the same way Deana grew up, just a different religion. So our kids have definitely a different, I think it is a blessing. Have an open mind. They see my mom, for example, my brothers, her family, and they just have this, like, it's not confusing. A lot of people think, hey, you're going to confuse them. No, if you truly believe in God,
It's confusing.
God is in control. And that's one thing I never understood with, and I still don't, with traditional Muslims, is that they're so controlling. If you truly believe, then let God do his job or its job. It will work out for the best. Stop trying to control everything like
they're doing God's
like your
job.
God.
Yeah.
You know? That's my opinion, but
no, I resonate with that because they're trying to do God's job for them.
Right,
Yes.
right.
That's what I
I'm trying
find.
to say.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. And they instill a lot of things. If you want to leave Islam, try something else. They want to kill you for it. You know, they judge you. They set, give you names, and they think that what you've experienced, and it's just judging. And that's the problem, isn't it? I mean, in the Quran, I've read so many times, don't judge, don't judge, don't judge. God is the only judge. But that's the first thing they will do. They will judge you. They will see you walk in the mosque, and all of a sudden, if you're a different color to them, they will judge you because they've got that bubble, and that bubble's been built, and it just goes back to the culture again. And that's just unfortunate. And we're trying to break away from having that bubble of that culture, because you're supposed to take the Quran, go into any country and be able to practice your religion regardless of the culture of that country. And this is a conversation I was having yesterday even. And you're right in what you say, in your estimation as well. So
yeah, why do you have to leave the culture that you've grown up in just to change your religion? Or what, like I think you guys spoke about when you guys did your last podcast about changing your name. I mean, why do you have to lose a part of your identity because you decided to follow a different way?
Well, it just shows you how intertwined culture is with.
Yeah.
That's what is proven. And back to the other point about judgment, but it also comes from the energy of control, and they're controlling because, in my opinion, it almost shows, and it might not, but it seems like it shows a lack of faith in God.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you're very controlling, you're going to control your child to do this and do this and do that. That means you don't believe your prayers. You don't believe that you said, God, please protect my children. Let them believe this, that. Hey, then let God do their job. And when you kind of intervene intervene into it, it shows that maybe you don't trust God, or maybe you're part of the controlling. I don't know. That's how I understood it, but I think that's more of a Christian view. You kind of pray, God does his job, or at least how I grew up, and then what happens, but that could be an Americanized Christian understanding
No, I
where
think it's
you kind of
supposed to
just
be
leave
that way.
people alone.
No,
Usually,
I think it's supposed to be that way, but yeah, it becomes a very, when people are controlling, they usually are judgmental.
Yeah, it all comes from the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, at least, for you, your mom recognizes that you believe something different. My mom just stays in denial, and just no matter how many times I might say it, still just pretends like she never heard it and continues to think that I still do the same thing she does. So at least maybe got a little step ahead.
Well,
so that's good.
Right. I hope, but my mum just follows what my dad does at the end of the day. I think there's a part of her where she wants to believe, but I think my dad's so controlling that maybe if I was to crack my dad, I think I'll have my mum. You know what I mean? So my dad's a hard nut to crack, to be fair. He's very stubborn. But that's human nature. When you've been believing something for so many years, it's hard.
It's difficult.
It's very, very difficult. I mean,
it's hard.
I mean, as a father, as long as I instill good manners, good ethics, good morals, good values into my children, that's part of the job done.
And that's how I feel for us. I feel like we have our own children now, and our focus should be on this family. And I don't worry so much about my extended family. They're all grown and they have their own families. Let them do what they're going to do. That's not my responsibility.
Absolutely. I mean, all I can say is just continue doing what you're doing, because what you're doing is working. You seem happy in your journeys. Alhamdulillah. We will help each other. We will continue to help each other on this journey. It's been absolutely fantastic knowing you both. Absolutely fantastic. How long has it been? What, over 11 years, did we say, Charlie? Over 11 years?
I think 11 years, 2008, whatever that is. I think so, around 2008.
I was going to talk about marriage today, but I think I'm going to leave that to the next podcast.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that could take a whole another hour or two.
Another hour. So I think we will leave this discussion, because this is a powerful discussion. I mean, what is a Muslim? And I think that's what we've discussed today, is what it means to be a Muslim. I mean, we've looked at from a traditional sense, we've looked at it from a Quranic sense, we've looked at it from a perspective, from a non-Muslim perspective, and we've used our experiences, but we've linked it back to the Quran, and I think that's really, really important. But it's been absolutely fantastic having you on today, both of you, Charlie and Deana. I am humble in what I say, in terms of hope we are together for a number of years to come, and we can stay good friends, and I deeply respect your views, and I'm out of words now. I'm out of words.
That's okay.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm going to leave you here. I'm going to stop the podcast. Please like, subscribe, and share. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
How do I stop this? Oh.
I don't stop it. He stops it.
Oh.
How do I stop my recording? Oh, yeah.